Right now, you probably think the most consequential thing you'll read today is some, new government policy.
Right, like a new tax law or something.
Exactly. You sit down with your coffee, you open up your feed, and you think, today I am going to be a well-informed citizen.
But then you get completely derailed.
Completely derailed. Statistically, you are way more likely to spend an hour obsessing over a couple getting married inside a glass house at the local zoo. Welcome to the deep dive.
It really is this hilarious reality check about human attention, isn't it?
It is.
Because when you put the mechanics of bureaucracy up against the unpredictable marvel of human choices, well, bureaucracy loses every single time.
Every time. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We have this fascinating source material titled Modern Marvels of Marriage and Motion.
Yeah, it's a really great read.
And the mission for this deep dive, which we've custom tailored for you listening right now, is to figure out why we have the surprising gravitation toward the extreme, the dangerous, and the unconventional in our everyday lives.
Right, like why we scroll past the laws that actually impact our taxes just to look at someone saying, I do next to a lion enclosure.
Exactly.
I mean, it really comes down to the mechanics of escapism. A government law dictates what we have to do.
This pure structure.
Right, structure, routine, restriction. But a bizarre wedding venue, on the other hand, represents what we choose to do when the guardrails of tradition are just completely stripped away.
We just have this innate, biological pull to see how far people will go to break the mold.
We do, and they are going really, really far.
Oh, the scale is massive. Look at the numbers from last year alone. Over 1.2 million people decided a standard church or banquet hall just wasn't going to cut it.
1.2 million.
Yeah, over 1 million people. They went for glass houses, zoos, dense forests, nightclubs.
That's wild.
This isn't just some niche internet aesthetic. It's a mass exodus from traditional institutions.
And that volume is precisely what shifts this from a fun quirk to a massive cultural restructuring of how we view milestones. Because, historically, the location provided the gravity of the moment,
Like the heavy stone of a cathedral.
Exactly. Or the imposing wood of a courthouse.
Yeah.
That architecture literally communicated the seriousness of the contract you were signing.
But here is where it gets really interesting to me. I've been wrestling with this idea.
What's that?
With 1.2 million people pouring money into these wild locations, are people making the venue the actual commitment?
Oh, that's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. Rather than the marriage itself, it's almost like buying a wildly expensive frame for a completely blank canvas.
Well, that tension is actually driving the entire wedding industry right now.
Really?
Yeah, what we're seeing is that these unconventional locations are the literal engine keeping the industry running year-round. There's no longer a wedding season.
Oh, because they happen all throughout the year now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not the desire to be married that drives the calendar anymore. It's the availability of the venue.
That is wild.
And the psychology behind it is just, human beings possess a deep-seated desire to break up the monotony of the calendar year.
Because a traditional June wedding in a church is expected.
Right, it's routine. But a nightclub wedding in February on a random Tuesday, that completely shatters the routine. People are utilizing these extreme venues as a form of rebellion against the mundane.
It's weaponized escapism. You are forcing all of your guests to escape their normal Tuesday morning lives and stand in a glass house.
And think about the logistics of that for a second.
It's a sensory overload.
Yeah.
You're in formal wear, trying to look pristine, while completely exposed to the elements or standing near exotic animals.
And that sensory overload is completely intentional.
How so?
Well, in an era where our days just blur together through screens and endless scrolling, we are desperate for memory anchors.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, a bizarre, high-sensory environment forces you and your guests to be aggressively present.
But this need for a memory anchor creates a pretty wild escalation problem, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, if a glass house or a zoo is the current baseline for 1.2 million people, that just becomes the new normal.
That is very true.
So what happens to the people who need to push it even further? If we've already conquered the zoo, what is the absolute unconquered frontier of matrimony?
The source material is actually incredibly specific about this.
Okay, what does it say?
Despite millions seeking out these wild venues, there are still 3 distinct realms that remain largely unconquered by the average person.
Like what?
Space, the deep ocean, and live television. These are considered the absolute final frontiers of the extreme wedding.
Wait, I need to call a timeout on that last one.
Live television.
Yeah, I'm looking at this claim that people have yet to conquer live television, and I have to push back. We live in a reality TV-obsessed culture.
I know, it sounds wrong at first.
Right, I feel like I've seen a dozen people get married on morning shows or the finale of a dating competition. How is live TV an unconquered frontier?
You're totally right to call that out. We do see TV weddings all the time. But let's look at the mechanics of what those actually are.
Okay.
A reality television wedding is a highly produced, heavily edited, structurally controlled event.
Sure, you have directors, lighting cues, multiple takes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here, and why it's grouped with space and the deep sea, is surrendering the genuine, unscripted, intimately private core of a marriage ceremony.
Oh, I see. To a raw, unedited, live broadcast.
Right, it's the panopticon effect, allowing millions of unseen strangers to judge you in real time with zero editorial control, is an environment just as actively hostile to human comfort as a vacuum chamber.
Wow. Okay, when you frame it as a complete loss of control, grouping it with the bottom of the ocean suddenly makes total sense.
Right,
It's not about the camera, it's about surrendering to the void.
precisely.
But let's talk about those physical voids, because the actual, literal logistics of a space wedding versus an underwater one are just mind-boggling.
Oh, they're logistical nightmares of the highest order.
In space, you're dealing with microgravity. You can't gracefully walk down an aisle.
No, you have to sort of propel yourself off a bulkhead.
And how do you even exchange rings? The moment you let go of it, it floats away into a ventilation shaft.
It really does. And underwater is arguably worse.
Yeah, you're in heavy scuba gear, dealing with immense atmospheric pressure.
You can't speak to say I do.
You just have to give a thumbs up and hope a moray eel doesn't crash the ceremony.
And yet people are actively trying to figure out how to do it.
It's crazy.
But the underlying mechanism here is about stripping away human dominance. In a glass house, you still control the climate.
And in a nightclub, you control the music and the guest list.
But in space, or under the oceanic crush, you control absolutely nothing. You're entirely at the mercy of an environment that does not care if you survive.
So the pursuit of these frontiers is the ultimate expression of this cultural shift.
Exactly. It's seeking out the ultimate lack of control to make the interpersonal commitment feel massive by comparison. You are surviving the elements together.
It takes a highly specific, adrenaline-seeking psychological profile to want to start a married life in an environment actively hostile to human survival.
It really does.
But that exact psychological profile doesn't just exist for weekend thrills or personal milestones.
No.
If you flip the lens, there is an entire segment of society where that exact same high-stakes, life-or-death environment is just a regular Tuesday morning shift at the office.
Exactly. We pivot from recreational thrill-seeking to occupational necessity.
Right.
The research highlights dangerous jobs that are always in demand, specifically because the work is, quote, not for the faint of heart.
And it specifically lists doctors, construction workers, and skyscraper window cleaners.
Yes, those exact three.
So what does this all mean? The dichotomy here is incredible. You have one group of people celebrating safely inside a glass house, controlling every single variable of their big day. And then you have another group of people dangling thousands of feet in the air, hanging on by a single carabiner outside in the wind, just to keep that glass clean for the people inside.
That's a stark contrast.
Does the high demand for these dangerous jobs suggest that society just relies entirely on a subset of the population who completely lacks a biological fear response?
Well, it's actually a common misconception that they lack fear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the physiological response, like the spike in cortisol, the adrenaline, it is still there.
So they still get scared.
Right. What differentiates them is how they process consequence and compartmentalize panic.
I see.
And if you look at the grouping here, a skyscraper window cleaner, a construction worker, and a doctor.
On paper, those are radically different socioeconomic and educational paths.
But functionally, they are identical in their relationship to fatal consequence.
How so? I mean, the window cleaner is dealing with gravity, the doctor is dealing with biology.
True, but the margin for error is exactly the same.
Break that down for me.
So a skyscraper window cleaner faces literal high altitude. If they make a 1 millimeter miscalculation with their harness, they fall.
Right, instant disaster.
Now, a surgeon faces the immense consequence of holding a human life in their hands. The altitude is metaphorical for the doctor, But if their scalpel slips by 1 millimeter, the patient crashes.
The stakes are fatal in both scenarios.
Exactly. The research groups them together purely based on their relationship to danger and consequence.
Because the daily psychological toll of operating with zero margin for error requires the exact same mental architecture.
Yes.
You have to train your brain to normalize the extreme. A surgeon literally trains their hands not to shake when an artery bursts.
Just like a window cleaner trains their brain to ignore the fact that they are suspended 80 stories above concrete.
Neither job is for the faint of heart.
And society fundamentally requires this division of labor. We outsource our mortal peril to these professionals so the rest of us can safely scroll on our phones and worry about mundane things.
But here's where this whole concept gets turned on its head. Because those high-stakes professionals, the surgeons, the ironworkers, they choose that life. They train for years to handle that pressure.
That's true.
But what happens when that exact same level of mortal peril is thrust upon a completely untrained civilian who is just trying to commute to the grocery store?
This is where the research gets incredibly vivid.
Because the ultimate test of the faint of heart isn't a wedding venue, and it isn't an extreme career. It is our daily infrastructure.
Right. It forces the everyday person to confront environments they are entirely unqualified to navigate.
And the text highlights extreme bridges to make this point.
Yes, the prime example is the City River Bridge, which stretches an astounding 4,000 feet above the ground.
4,000 feet. Just to put that into perspective for you listening, you are driving almost a mile up in the sky.
You're higher than some clouds.
Crosswinds are hitting your sedan. And the prevailing advice from the text for crossing it is literally just don't look out the window.
It's pure survival.
It completely strips away the romance or convenience of modern travel and reduces a simple commute to pure white-knuckled psychological endurance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces the everyday commuter to adopt the mindset of the skyscraper window cleaner just for a few minutes.
You have to actively suppress your survival instincts just to keep your foot on the gas pedal.
Exactly.
But at least the City River Bridge is a modern engineering marvel designed to span a massive gorge. The research gives us another example of extreme infrastructure that is arguably much more terrifying.
Because it's so incredibly mundane.
Yes. It talks about a bridge in Louisiana. The text refers to it as an oldest bridge, noting it was built in 1990.
Right.
And to access the specific bridge, a literal permission slip, a legal waiver, is required.
It's a phenomenal, deeply unsettling detail.
Not because the bridge leads to a highly secure, important facility, but simply because the structure itself is really, really dangerous. It is absolute madness.
It really is.
It's like needing a permission slip from your parents for a middle school field trip, except the field trip is to a bridge built in 1990 that might just collapse under your Honda Civic.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I have to question the engineering logic of the text here, though. I mean, 1990 is not ancient history.
Well,
Why build a bridge in 1990 that is so inherently dangerous it requires legal waivers just to cross it? Why wouldn't the local government just fix it or build a safer bridge?
Because it's a perfect storm of bureaucracy, structural aging, and budget deficits.
Okay, explain that.
When bridges were built in that specific late 80s to early 90s era, engineers often used specific types of tension cables or steel alloys.
Right, standard materials for the time.
But we now have decades of data showing that those specific materials degrade incredibly fast in highly humid, corrosive environments.
Like the swamps of Louisiana.
Exactly. So the local municipality is suddenly faced with a bridge that is structurally compromised.
So they should shut it down or rebuild it.
Logically, yes. But a structural rebuild costs tens of millions of dollars that a local district might not have.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Right. So instead of funding a massive public works project or completely cutting off a vital transit route for the community, they found a bureaucratic loophole.
Let's slap a mandatory legal waiver on it.
By making you sign a permission slip, the government is explicitly passing the ultimate risk of structural failure directly onto the daily commuter.
That is wild. They are basically saying, we know this is a death trap, but if you really need to get to work today, you have to legally agree that it's your own fault if you fall in.
Exactly. It perfectly encapsulates the entire theme of what we've been talking about.
How so?
Whether it is humanity's irrational attraction to the dangerous, like seeking out extreme wedding venues, or our forced tolerance of the dangerous, like signing a waiver to cross a degrading bridge.
We are constantly dancing on the edge of consequence.
Oof.
We started this journey by talking about how you, the listener, might be sitting with your coffee trying to read about dry, ordinary government tax laws.
Yeah, expecting a normal morning.
Only to be completely captivated by the bizarre extremes of a zoo wedding. And look at the underlying mechanics we've uncovered.
A lot.
We've seen how our desperate need to escape the routine has driven over 1 million people out of traditional venues and into glass houses and forests.
Turning a simple commitment into a year-round extreme sport.
Exactly.
We've looked at the absolute limits of that escapism, the unconquered frontiers of space, the crushing depths of the ocean, the unedited vulnerability of live television.
We've examined the unique psychological architecture of the fearless, the doctors and window cleaners who compartmentalize fatal stakes so that society can actually function.
And we ended up suspended 4,000 feet in the air.
Or signing a legal waiver just to drive across a rusting bridge in Louisiana. It is a powerful reminder of how often we unconsciously navigate the extreme in our own lives.
We really do.
We seek out massive, uncontrollable thrills for our personal milestones, yet we completely rely on the steady, calculated fearlessness of surgeons and engineers to keep the world turning while we do it.
Which leaves us with a pretty wild thought to chew on.
What's that?
If human nature drives us to constantly push the baseline, if it takes a nightclub wedding or a terrifying commute just to feel something today, what happens when these extremes just become tomorrow's mundane?
Oh, wow.
Right. Will there come a day when a wedding in low Earth orbit or a 4,000-foot daily commute over a gorge is viewed with the exact same boredom as those government tax laws we so quickly scroll past?
That is something to think about the next time you log on expecting a quiet morning. Until next time.